this gentleman had a picture of his granddaughter, and that was in that frame. That's what matters most in life. To Rick, it's not necessarily, saying to him, hey, make sure you bring in a picture of your daughter into the clinic. It's probably on his phone. But you better believe I'd be like, hey, I want to see your, picture of your daughter from Halloween when I see you on Tuesday. Don't miss that appointment, right? I want to see you. I want to see a picture of you on your paddleboard, right? These are all the things. But if you just focus on the wrist, and that's what we base someone's plan of care on, they're not going to complete that plan of care. As soon as that wrist starts to feel better, Rick's busy. Rick's got other priorities. Okay. So what I'm going to suggest to everybody as well is that, the whole premise of what we do is about the why. Why are patients coming through our door? What matters most in life to each individual patient? And the one thing that I will often hear from a lot of clinicians is, well, sometimes my patient won't give me that information. Fair point. But the reality is lots of people aren't going to trust us right, but they don't know us. Okay. So here's one thought. How many of you in your sort of interactions with patients with your clinicians, how many of you have had the conversation with your staff around being able to identify the patient's why? Just write emotional in the chat if that's a focus in your conversations with your staff. Because now I'm going to get you good. And then, Erdem, that's you, because you were first. When you think about though, how are you measuring whether that conversation though is actually changing their behavior? And Ali, for you, I know you're just new to the CD role. How are you going to know same thing, whether that was conversations you're having are actually changing clinical practice, or if they're going through like what my wife would say to me is in one ear, out the other ear. Okay. And Ali, Bailey, great thing too, like starting with why. But if you think about it, and if you guys, recorded how each of us does an assessment at times, there's a drastic difference between someone who is going in with this mindset to get information versus just going in there to ask questions. Okay. So let's do a little exercise together. Some of you may have seen this before because it's something I think is just so well done by a very young clinician. So let's say, for example, let's pretend this is Rick's story. Rick comes into the clinic, my wrist hurts, stop me from performing a downward dog pose in yoga because I can't weight bear through that wrist. I'm unable to attend any further yoga classes for the next month. Give me a score on this one from 0 to 10 on how well we've identified why this patient's coming to the clinic. 0 is like, this is terrible. 10, this is actually really good, subjective question where we've got some good information. Excellent. That's good. But here's some good info. Now what I want you to think about is how many of your clinicians would move on and now start going into either the next set of questioning or go into their objective exam. So let's just put objective in the chat if you think most people would move on. Yeah,
I think most people would move on, right? Like this is just like a standard like question you ask and you like the response, but they're not peeling the onion, right?
Yeah, and for those of you that haven't had to listen to me before, I'm just going to stop the screen share for a second. What would be your next question you would ask? Throw that in the chat. So let's pretend this is Rick in front of you. I can't participate in yoga because it hurts when I weight bear through my wrist. What's your next question? How does that make you feel? Okay, potentially, right? So that's close. What else? What are some other things that you'd want to know? Next question. Okay, so Laura, you're getting closer, investigating a little bit more about the yoga. Like is there friends there? Is it a social outing? Melissa, great. Why do you like yoga? Right? And again, if you look at this, it's actually...
Your wife typing that?
No, she's not. She's on a different call, I can tell. And this is the thing, right? Is getting to the next part, which is just, we got to ask the why, right? So remember, we were trained in a way, and I can comment in physio. So you guys have a read of this. And this was a clinician who was out of school for 3 months. And I honestly said to him when he actually was presenting this case to me, I said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I would have stopped at interview question number 1. I was good. I was done. I knew what I had to do. Can't weight bear through the wrist, probably some sort of instability in the carpus. Good enough. Probably, some sort of interdigital ligament problem. I would have wiggled it a little bit, stress test it. And I would have said, okay, sounds good. I'll see you twice a week for the next 2 weeks. But I don't have a relationship with this person. I don't know anything about them. right? So the same thing that I would say to Rick, Rick, why is paddleboarding so important to you? This young clinician knew well enough to say, tell me a little bit, like, why is yoga so important to you? And you could see that this one was a little bit of a social component for sure, right? As Lori had said, but the main thing, this was something that actually helped them on the wellness side, the happiness side, may help them manage their mental health, right? So if you think about this starts to get pretty deep. Now, if I was to get you guys to score this now, how would you score your clinicians if they were able to get this amount of detail on the emotional driver of why someone was coming into our clinic for every single assessment that you could have spent up to, I don't know, Rick, what do you think is a good marketing dollar to spend on a new patient to come through the clinic?
Yeah, 40 bucks,
Right?
50 bucks.
40, 50 bucks just for a phone call. You still have to convert that patient, right? At the front desk and then get them into our chair. We have to pay our front desk. We got to keep our lights on. Getting a new patient in the clinic is very expensive. So how would you guys rate this subjective interview now on a scale of 0 to 10? Or Dan, you got high, or Dem's high, her high standard. This is excellent. And if you could move all of your clinicians, and same as what Cassie said, there was like, some of my clinicians would stop there, some would continue. We need to understand what's happening here. But remember, all of your clinicians, especially in the physio world, were trained to not really ask open-ended questions. We were trained to get a subjective interview done really quickly because we knew that was probably a question going to be on our ridiculous national exam. And we were trained to do things fast. We were not trained to actually, as well as we'd like, to go into deep motivational coaching, pull information from people, but we don't treat body parts. We actually manage and we care for people, and people are complicated. And here's just typical things that we see over the years of, why people are coming to our clinic. Rick, you and I made this list a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Is play with your kids, play with sports that you love, be productive in the office, not rely on pain meds when you get out of bed in the morning, have sex with your partner again. Like, no one with pelvic girdle pain that I see, and the tons of hip patients that I see, no one tells me that my hip hurts. I already know that. They're all telling me with their partner beside them is, I don't have a really good relationship with my partner anymore, and I need you to help me fix that. Okay. So, and I think too, as Lori said, like, we're actually a little bit at times, we don't like to go too deep into the emotional stuff, right? But unfortunately, that's what makes somebody decide to come into our clinic. When was the last time you saw somebody for an acute injury? Like, I hurt myself 2 days ago, they came into the clinic, that you didn't see as a previous patient? When was the last time you saw that acute injury that you didn't, Rick hadn't seen you before? Maybe 3 weeks, right? But if you were to say, what's the average amount of time that patients have a painful condition before they come in to see you as a clinician? How many weeks or months?
Years, maybe.
Years. Yeah. 4 to 6 weeks, potentially 3 months, 4 to 6 weeks. Like, and if you think about it too, is some of us we're seeing this reduction in the amount of time people have had symptoms for because they've been to your clinic before. They're actually reactivated patients, or someone had told them how great you are, and they actually suggested you go into the clinic, right? And see, you got to go see Danielle. She's like the best physio in all of North Bay, right? But the reality is something has to happen in their life for them to all of a sudden decide, I'm going to give up my time, my effort, my money. Like, even for Rick, I'm going to give up time away from my family in order to come in and go to physio twice a week, or to go see my chiro